I think that you cannot get too stuck in being the local DJ lane where I was playing Spy Bar, I think like once a month and then Prism here and there. But I was always releasing music and really taking not just myself seriously, but all my pages, on my socials. Like it was never, even though I had a full-time job and stuff like that, it was never seen as a hobby. And it was never seen as a, like it's very hard to break out when you kind of get that, I think, connotation a little bit. So, and I feel almost bad saying that because you need to get your reps in. But it's all about the music. You got to produce, and you got to make tracks that other DJs can play. And then also you got to not give a fuck. You got to be delusional. You got to post on TikTok every single day because who cares? Like it's gonna be cringy.
What's going on? Welcome to the New Music Business. I'm your host, Ari Herstand, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business, the book. Third edition is out now, everywhere, hardcover, ebook, audiobook, however you listen to books, consume books, go find that book. Today, my guest is John Summit.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
He is one of the most sought after names in global dance music. He's a superstar DJ producer and now a label owner, and we go deep into talking about his new label, Experts Only. He has nearly 1 billion all-time global streams across his own catalog, 2 number 1 US dance radio hits, 2 top 10 tracks on the Billboard Hot Electronic Dance Songs chart, and he has sold out shows across the globe, including BMO Stadium here in LA for 22,000 people. He played Madison Square Garden. He's playing the Forum. And he closed out the Sahara tent at Coachella this past year. He's played EDC and Tomorrowland, all the major festivals all over the world. We talk about a wide range of topics during this interview, and we talk about how he got his start making music with a day job, producing songs in his parents' basement, to now touring the globe and going nonstop, and how he kind of got his first break, if you can call it that, and he gives advice to aspiring DJ producers and how they should go about it, and talking about running his own label now, Experts Only, and what he's looking to do with that. It's a very wide-ranging conversation that we had, and I really love chatting with John. You can find John Summit everywhere on all the socials, however you listen to music. He's one of the biggest stars in the world within the dance community, and it was a real pleasure and treat to chat with him. So go if you don't know his music and you're not in the dance world, go check it out. It's really great. Catch one of his shows and dive in. It's a lot of fun, and he's a true master or an expert, as you will, at what he does. You can find all of us that make the show happen at Ari's Take on Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, all that stuff. You can find me at Ari Herstand on Instagram. But visit aristake.com and get on the email list. That is where you're going to get the most up-to-date information about the new music business, where we'll send you new info about the new music business and when new episodes come out. But right now, if you could just pause this episode, hit the subscribe, hit the follow button, give us a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That really helps. All right, let's kick into the show. John Summit, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? How are we doing?
Doing well. So where are you now? I feel like you're in a different part of the world every other day, but it looks like you maybe resided somewhere fairly, I don't know. Where are you?
I'm in my home of Miami. I'm home for I think like 16 hours, and then I'm off to Australia tomorrow. So yeah,
sick.
It's nonstop.
Did I not just see on your story that you were in Vegas or something, or you at the Fontainebleau or something? Is that was that today, yesterday? I don't know. I can't keep your travel schedule straight.
I can't keep track either myself, but yeah, it was yesterday. Okay. I did the day party on Saturday, so I kind of had the day off yesterday, which was pretty nice.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you for joining me on your day off. I know you don't sleep much. It seems like you're constantly in motion. You're constantly working.
Yep.
But I want to, first congratulate you on your album, Comfort and Chaos. I know it's been out for a few months now. It probably feels like old news because you performed 1,000 times since then, maybe. But it's congratulations. It's a great body of work. I'm curious, as someone who's been releasing music for so long and singles, I mean, years, why an album? Why now?
Well, all my favorite artists have all had albums, and it's always been a goal of mine. Like, it felt like more of a passion project than it did feel like a business venture or whatever.
Sure.
I mean, we live in the single age, I feel like, with streaming, and then everything has a short shelf life. And I just personally don't like that because, I don't know, like growing up, like in Chicago, I'd go to Pitchfork every year, and like my favorite bands are like Animal Collective, Arcade Fire, Radiohead, and I've all had such amazing albums. And even like Kanye was one of my biggest inspirations, where like every single album, he kind of changed the music industry a little bit with it, for better or for worse, And
sure,
I think, and as someone that used to work a desk job, I felt like releasing a single every 3-4 weeks kind of like felt very like I was working like a 9 to 5 almost. It wasn't fulfilling. And so like, I don't know, doing an album, I thought it was so awesome to be able to get a little introspective, right? Not just bangers, but stuff that's more low key, a little bit more emotional. And I'm happy I did it.
No, absolutely. And so let's talk about that, the creation process a little bit, the writing, recording process. How did you approach this process differently than kind of the rat race of just pumping out single after single after single? Did you go in with the intention, I'm going to sit down and make an album from scratch? Did you pull from, old works, unreleased stuff? Did you know your collaborators going in? Tell me about the creation process.
So it's a little mix of both. Is that most of the collaborators on the album are people I've worked with over the years, and I've been sitting on a lot of tracks that weren't big enough for festivals, but were super well written and just didn't make sense in the context of a single.
Yeah.
And then also, the way I work with songwriting is I start with a song, a piano chord idea, and then produce it from there, where I've always been producing with clubs and festivals and that mindset.
Right.
Where for this, I did like locally drum and bass, did some breaks, did some, like dance floor drum and bass, did some focus, and kind of could go all over the place. So I thought that was what's the most fun part of it. Nice. And there's no rules.
Yeah, no, it's great. And it is nice to hear. I mean, an album does give you an opportunity to go introspective, to push the bounds of what most people know you as. And, I would imagine as you're creating singles, you're like you said, how is this going to perform in a club? And you can test them out and see if they're responding. We're like, well, we still need to tweak that a bit, or maybe that's not going to, we're not going to release that one that didn't really hit as hard as I thought it might, or something like that.
Even if the songwriting is good, though, too. So then that's what sucks.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives you the opportunity because, right, I mean, not every great song will resonate in a club setting. That doesn't mean it's not a great song. Like the bands that you're talking about earlier, Radiohead, Arcade Fire, Animal Collective, they're not going to resonate in a club setting as their works, but there's arguably some of the greatest music of all time. So that's nice. And when you are creating these songs, knowing that this is going to be for an album and that it doesn't have to perform in that club setting, in that dance setting that you're so used to, or the festival setting rather, were you fighting against that instinct that like, oh, we need to drop here, oh man, we got to bring the beat in sooner, or this, like, because that is how you created for so long? Like, how did you challenge yourself to get out of that mindset? Be like, no, song first.
No, it's very tough because I felt like I was getting stuck in my ways. I was doing tech house for like 5-6 years of like, that's the only thing I was doing. And I got like very, very good at it. Yep. But then every time I made music, I felt like I was doing the same structure, the same arrangement, the same build-ups. And it felt, it was working, but wasn't very fulfilling. And I still have one track on the album called Eat the Bass, which is like very much that style. And it was very fun to make.
Sure.
But if I had to do 12 tracks like that, that just like wouldn't be fun to me. And
Right.
yeah, and it's also what is fun to me is challenging myself. Like Tears, for example, on the album is a song from the start to finish. There's only one actual like drop in it, which is
I
like
love that
very
song.
unique
That's
for
my
me.
favorite song on the record. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and that was the hardest one to produce because it's not a traditional dance record. You know,
it's a journey. It's a song. I mean, you can resonate. I mean, it's storytelling and it's emotional and introspective. And now, did you write those lyrics, or did your featured artist Paige Cavell write those lyrics?
So it depends on the record. That record, Paige was going through heartbreak at the time. I have not been dating for years until recently.
Okay.
So I wasn't going through heartbreak, and she wanted to convey that on the record. And then where the collaboration comes into play, of course, the little tweaks here and there.
Sure.
But I mean, you could tell it in her voice, like she's going through it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it hits, and that's I think why that song works so well is it's true, it's honest, you know, and like when you're sitting down and listening to music versus in the club dancing, jumping, you know, raging to it. There's different intention, and to be able to like resonate with that, you know, I'm at home with my headphones on listening and stuff, and it's just like it hits differently, but you can also resonate in a different way, and I think that's maybe why that song hit me the hardest is because I could feel the truth, I could feel everything behind it, and you guys complement each other so well, and the track itself really supports the message, and they just work together. It doesn't feel disjointed like sometimes some top liners can when they come into a track and they might not even have ever met each other and they're just like, oh, let me send this to you, you know. But it really felt like this was a complete piece of art and that was telling a story that resonated.
Yeah, that's exactly the goal, because I do, I guess, for lack of better words, like cringe a little bit when I hear a top line with a production that like doesn't make any sense. It's like a very over the top, like EDM banger, and like super emotional. Like it can work, but it's tough, you know. I mean, you got to be able to complement each other. It's like I think being a DJ producer is a modern day band where you know you have a vocalist, you know, a producer where you do the drums, beat, melodies. And then also I work with some piano players on top of that. Like for Go Back, we worked with Eddie Jenkins, who adds like the little piano melodies on that too. And it does feel like a modern day band kind of situation where I'm kind of the front man. It's kind of wild, but I love it.
Now live, are pretty much all of your shows just you? I mean, have you worked with live musicians? I don't think I saw many or any live shows where you had other people on stage or other musicians on stage. I mean, you call yourself like a modern day band. Has that ever? I mean, your production is insane. I mean, I don't think I've seen production like the videos I saw from MSG when you played MSG like that. I mean, you blew that place open like it hasn't been before. But have you ever felt inspired to bring in instrumentalists like that, like you know, like a band or something like that?
So I have like a 5-year end goal of where I want to bring the show. And then there's so many different elements, right? So right now I'm working heavy on video production, lighting, and I work very closely with my video designers and visual designers and all of that. And that's why we had Marcos Alvarado, who did the artwork on the album. And we're kind of bringing this more psychedelic art concept to it. But from there, I want to bring live instrumentalists as well. It's kind of like how Pete Tong does like the Ibiza classics, where you can bring those songs to life. And but it's one of those things, it's like one thing at a time. I feel like I'm still in my short film kind of era where like the end goal is being a Steven Spielberg-esque like figure, for lack of better words, where you have this full cast and credits, full crew, dancers. I mean, I want to have a full choir, you know, orchestra and all that. Cool. But what's exciting for me is there's so much more to add to the show. But for like 10 years, I was just a DJ by myself. So now we're getting a little crazy with it.
Nice. No, that's great. And there's always room to grow. And when you play the Sphere in 5 years, then you can bring out all the stops, right?
Exactly.
So I want to talk about kind of pre-pandemic, post-pandemic for you, because I know you really started to connect and take off in a new way, kind of 2020, 21, 22. What was that experience like where pre-pandemic, what were the kinds of shows you were playing, the clubs? I'm assuming they were, I know they were a lot smaller, but they were in a different way. And then coming out of the pandemic, having your music resonating in a completely different way, and then jumping into the live space again. What was that like?
So pre-pandemic, I was touring to like 200 people. This was like after I got fired from my accounting job. I was making no money at all, barely making ends meet. I saved I think $10K from my accounting job over 2 years to make by, and then COVID hit. And then I was at straight up zero in the bank account. Lived in the parents' basement, and then just made tracks all day, every day. And that year, I made over 100 songs, sent demos every single day. Wow. The label was Defected, Repopulate Mars, and it took literally 60 demos for Defected to finally respond. And they said that they loved this record deep end, signed it overnight. And then I think by that next Friday, it was Pete Tong's Essential New Tune. And then from there, everything kind of started going crazy. And then I did a new record every 3 weeks for 2 years straight. And then once things opened up, I was nonstop. So I'm a big believer that, if you're given an opportunity, you got to run with it. And you can't, can't really sit back at all. I haven't really sat back at all since that time. And it's been nuts. I never once expected to be where I am now.
Insane. Let's talk about that. When you were kind of making that music at home in your parents' basement and making those demos. Now, when you for outside the dance world, I feel like the industry operates very differently in terms of when a label is going to decide to sign an artist or not, or partner with an artist. You mentioned you were sending demos to Defected Records. Did you have an in there? Did you know somebody there? Were you just a fan of the label and you're like, you know what, I'm going to just keep pounding down the door and send them stuff? I mean, you sent them how many demos before they said 60 or something?
Yep.
Most labels, after the first one that doesn't hit, they're like, fuck off. Don't come back to us. We're done with you. The saying is you only get one shot at a first impression. You had 60 shots. How do they give you so many chances?
I think I was just completely delusional. And then they had a public demo email on their SoundCloud, which I do for my label too, Extra Sony. Yep. And it was just the shotgun approach. And I knew that these records were good. And then I also sent them to other DJs, so they're getting played out. And on SoundCloud, you can see when people listen to your track. So I saw that they were listening to it. And then I think after a few, this guy, Ollie Welch, Ollie, responded to it. And he's like, oh, this is nice. This is interesting. Keep sending more. And that's all I needed. I read that. Yeah. Keep sending more. And I'm going to send as many as fucking possible.
Be careful what you ask for. Right?
Exactly.
Ollie, yeah.
But and then but then I was sending to a bunch of other labels too. I was signed to 12 different ones at the time, and they're all small indie dance labels. And when I say signed to them, this is signing a record and they release it. So basically, they just hand the
one
distro.
Track.
Yeah, kind of exactly. And that's what I do with my record label too. I haven't signed artists. I don't want the long-term deal shit. Stuff weirds me out. It's you hear too many horror stories, or I don't know. It was just legit fun for me at the time too. It felt kind of like a video game. I'm just saying to everyone, and then I had nothing to lose then. That's for sure.
That's great. So when they was it Ollie that brought you in that said, okay, the number 60 is the one that we want to put out on Defected, and then it just took off?
It was Wes Sanders. So shout out to him. He's an absolute legend. He's the CEO of Defected. Yep. And then he set up a Zoom call the next day within 6 hours of my email. I still haven't slept all night, so I was completely delirious. He's like, we're going to make this a hit. We're going to release this in a week. Let's fucking go. And I'm like, yes. And I mean, looking back, the track was a little bit out of key. It's not even that great of production, but the whole idea was there. And it's cool that they saw that in me.
Which song was this?
It's called Deep End. So it's a spliced vocal. So, and then the original singer for it, Fushi, ended up doing an original called Deep End because after that blew up, she's like, oh, I should probably release it myself and stuff.
Wait, did you say it was a splice vocal?
Yep.
Like Fushi? So Fushi recorded vocals, did just put some vocal loops on Splice, and then you found it and you downloaded it and
exactly.
you used it for the track.
Yeah. Like
That's wild.
My first 4 years of releases were all Splice vocals. It was either that or like my own vocal on my iPhone. So yeah. But there's no rules to it because I had nothing to lose. Like I would find good samples, and then there's a couple other songs I sampled that might have not been very legal, but they only have like 10,000 streams. So
right. That's wild. So when you put out this song, you put out Deep End with Defected, and then it connects, it takes off. Where were you seeing it resonate? Like how do you track that? Was it SoundCloud? Was it Spotify? Were DJs picking it up and playing it in clubs? Like Shazams? Like where were you noticing that this was kind of connecting?
That record hit number 1 on Beatport overall, and I remember my mom like took a video of me in the backyard spraying champagne. I'm like, I got a number 1 record, like freaking out. But it's funny though, because like nothing was open in the time. That was like June 2020, so I don't even know who was buying the record.
Right.
But from there, then all the other labels started noticing me, and so then I didn't have to send 60 emails. I could send like 5, and it was nonstop. I was like relentless after that, and then I moved down to Miami, where I live now, and the parties never really stopped there during 2020, 2021. And, I was broke. I had nothing to lose. And I like built a good fan base here, built like a big culture, would play the clubs every single weekend. And before you know it, I'm playing festivals, and then I make some. Then once I got my name bigger and bigger, I could start working with actual vocalists. Like Hayla, for example. And the way I got connected to her was I remixed K5's Escape, which she's on it. And then that did so well. We're like, all right, let's do an original. We wrote the original, and then that blew up. And I guess here I am today, like 50 records after that.
Wild. So when you work with vocalists like Hayla, or Paige, or you have a Julia Church you've worked with. A lot of these artists, these vocalists, top liners. What's the process like typically? Are you always working in a room together? Are you sending tracks back and forth, ideas? Like, tell me about that collaboration process a little bit.
So I met most people through like Zoom and WhatsApp during COVID when we were all like kind of stuck at home. And so I actually do work very well remote. But when it came to the album, I went to London for a month and during November. And that's when we got a lot of songwriting done, because when you try and do an album, you want it to all be cohesive and not just like 12 completely separate singles.
Yep.
But it still is a mix of both. And so I can send them a chord pattern, they can send me like a top line idea, and we're very collaborative in that aspect. It's like me and Sub Focus for Go Back. We like did the original production together in the studio for like 4 hours. And then after that, we just kept sending the Ableton sessions back and forth for like 3 months. And we're perfectionists. So like I would like change the kick drum, he would change one hat, and back and forth to the point where like our managers are like, we can't even tell a difference. You guys need to stop. So that was fun.
So when you're collaborating with another DJ producer like Sub Focus, I've never collaborated like that before. I can't even fathom how that works. Like, step me through. Like speak to me. Like I don't, like a 10-year-old of just like how this works. Like, are you working in Ableton? Are you guys like sharing a session? Does that technology even exist where you can like? Is there a cloud that you can share it in? Or like, I know that Pro Tools exists or something, but like, how does it actually work when you work on a track together remotely with another producer?
So in Ableton, you can collect all and save, which basically saves down the whole project file and all the samples, and then you can just like send it via Dropbox, and it's the exact same session. The only thing that like sucks is that you need all the plugins. So I just download all the plugins now too, because if he's using something, I'm assuming it's good, and then vice versa. And then it's just like really just like a back and forth process. What's tough is that we mix and master so differently. Like he's super hard clips. It's like plus 10 dB on the master. Makes no sense in my mind. But for that record, it goes from house to drum and bass. So like I kind of mastered my end, he mastered his end, and we made sure it kind of was level. But I think it's really cool because it's like a collab that sounds like it's like the 1 + 1 = 3 mentality that we made, like both did our own thing and then made something totally new out of it.
Cool. That's wild. So with most of your tracks, are you mixing, mastering? I mean, you're writing, producing, mixing, mastering, start to finish. It's all your session, and then you send it off for distribution. There's nobody else that kind of comes in and does anything to it.
No, it just depends on the record. I have a guy I've been stem mastering with since like 2016. Janie from Finland. When I started, it was like a €15 master. I found him on Reddit. And now because I'm a client and have helped him find some work, he can charge a little bit more. He's an absolute fucking legend.
Nice.
He's like a legit drum and bass guy who does like metalhead releases, like very underground.
Sick.
But the reason why I do that is not only because he's so talented and everything, but having a second set of ears. Like when I'm working on a record for 40 plus hours, like it can sound great in my headphones, but like you get so much ear fatigue that having that like second ears on it. I mean, it's not like there's not to compare myself to a big movie like Dune or whatever, but there's obviously more than one editor on it, you know?
Of course.
And so I think that's very helpful. But when it comes to playing out live, I have this like super simple DJ master rack that I have online that can send to anyone, where it's really just about making it loud enough if you're playing it out live.
Yeah. Playing it out loud live. I'm curious, like when you're playing this album or the songs from this album live, like I noticed, I think in one of your videos, I mean, you're remixing your own music because like I feel like I heard I forget which track it was. It might have been Go Back actually, but or maybe it was Resident, but where you like sped it up and it's like it's almost like the live remix or something of what. Like tell me about the approach of like now bringing these songs live and which songs you decide to use, how much of the song, how you're going to remix it, I guess, for the live setting.
So I don't want to name names, but a pet peeve of mine is when I see an artist live at a festival or whatever, and it sounds like they're just like playing their Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
And as a DJ, like, because we're not like playing the instruments live or anything, if you're just playing the track straight up and mixing them track to track, you're kind of more or less not really doing anything.
Sure.
So, where my performance, I'm good at mixing. I added acapellas and stuff like that, but it's not overly technical like a James Hype or something. But where I think it makes it a live experience is that I make all these live VIP edits where VIP, variants in production, where the only way you could hear that is by seeing me play live. And then I add new vocals on top, switch the melodies. And then also I have friends that remix my records too, like Cassian with Shiver, Max Tower with Tears. And doing all those little things, like, especially, imagine being like kind of, at a party, drunk with your friends, and you hear a track, and then the drop totally switches it up. You're like, holy shit, how the hell?
Yeah.
And then I think that's where like preparation is what's key for a DJ. And the live show element is the production, is the lighting, is all of that. And my whole team all like punts it basically. There's no real time code. So if I like switch up a record, I always switch up my set list. So I keep them on their toes, and then they got to keep up with the lighting, visuals, and all that. So that's very jam band-esque, I think.
Nice. I saw, speaking of the Sphere, I saw Fish at the Sphere 2 nights there. And the Fish played 4 nights, and every show was a completely different set. That they don't repeat. There's the songs. Famously, Fish doesn't repeat it. But for the 4 nights of the Sphere, not only did they not repeat a song, they didn't repeat a visual. And for the Sphere, it's like it costs like $30,000 a minute to create visuals for the Sphere, and we're talking Fish that are doing 3.5 hour sets each night. And they're a jam band. And so they're jamming, they're improvising, and the visuals are mirroring or moving with the music. And we're not just talking it's lights that are going. We're talking like you're driving through an enchanted forest where the trees are growing multicolored leaves, and then they're swaying with the music as it vibes. And I'm like, it totally blew my mind. I don't even understand how that's even possible. So when you're tell me about your productions with your video teams and your lighting, you're just full production team. If you're not to a grid, you're not to time codes, you're changing up the set list. How do you rehearse that? How do you even how are they figuring out how to do that?
So we actually don't rehearse it, but we've been doing it together for so many years now. And I play such long sets that it feels when a drummer is a 1, a 2, and then everyone follows his lead. That's how it feels. And nothing's perfect for their show, but I think the fans like that. The strobe might stay on too long, the key light might turn off at the wrong time. I'll drag out a big build up or something. But as a fan of jam bands growing up, I think that environment is way more fun. And you can see, if you watch the front of house during my show, they're all jamming just as hard. It looks like they're DJing and playing instruments too. So
sick.
That's what keeps it fun.
That's great. So tell how many people are on your live production team?
MSG, we had... there's 130 people hired for it when it comes to stagehands and actually building stage production and all of that. But when it comes to there's an LD, a VJ, stage manager, tour manager, production manager. There's a lot, right? Because then you have the monitors guy, but we're all pretty close knit. And then after the big shows, we all party together. So it feels it's like a football team. A football team's 50 people, right? So it's kind of the same shit. We just don't have a locker room.
Yeah. So do you keep the same crew for the big shows like MSG or the BMO Stadium show in LA or the Forum or just those big ones?
We switch it up, and there's turnover, and there's it's like anything. There's creative differences. And then I'm a little manic in that every single show I do is different, and so it'd be different if we were touring the same rig for 8+ years, and then we could very fine tune that. But I'm doing Kia Forum in November, 3 nights, and I still don't even know what the production I want to do for that is. We could do what we did at MSG, but I already did that.
Yeah.
So my team has a little hard time with that because I'm a little chaotic. But the main core have all been together for a while now.
When designing a show like that for an arena like the Forum or MSG, it's not too far out from the Forum, and you're still kind of conceiving it. But what's the process like to design the stage production for an arena show, and how does that differ from maybe designing the stage production for a festival show?
So in arena, you have the whole day of load-in, and you have all the control in the world. In a festival, besides Coachella, we have a 30-minute changeover where we can bring the stage in, and that was super hectic. But that screen isn't ours, and Tomorrowland, you can't even bring an LD, a VJ, or anything. There's no visuals or anything. So it's kind of just playing their festival. So that's why I like doing my big headline shows, is because I have full creative control and I can make it as unique and special to me as possible. But the downside is I lose a fuck ton of money. MSG,
because the production's so expensive.
Yeah, exactly. MSG, I was basically $1 million of the whole, not a single dollar. But
wow.
It's investing in my brand, right? That's how I justify it.
Yep.
I could have done 5 nights in a row or something, but I don't know. I like doing these big displays, and then I'm still young. I just turned 30. I'm pretty cheap when it comes to life. I don't own a car or anything. I don't need a, I make my money with the club shows and stuff. So right now it's all about being as, I don't know, adventurous with it as possible.
That's great. That's fun. And how do you put the visuals together? Do you work with your LD and your video person, and do you work with outside designers or artists or anything like that to kind of conceive of, do you have a theme for the night, and is there a palette or a board? Like, I'm curious how you go about that designing process.
Well, at first it was song by song. So Human, I mean, in 2022, I did this with Nate Steiner, a VJ, and he filmed this like kind of music video that the girl was like mouthing the lyrics for Human, and it was like very cool. Because I'm very kind of anti-AI. I don't want to use CGI. I'm not a big Marvel guy. And then there's already artists like Anima who do it so fucking well that you can't even compete with it. And so for this album concept, I worked with Marcus Alvarado, who's like more of a psychedelic abstract artist. Been following on social media for years, and he really helped bring my album to life in a not so literal way, because I'm not a big realism guy with art. And then what we're working on right now is taking those sketches he did for the art and actually visualizing it. And it's tough because I don't come from Hollywood. I'm a Midwest Chicago guy that I don't know too many animators, and prices get kind of crazy. So I'm not doing the Sphere anytime soon, because if I did the Sphere, it'd have to be an incredible audio visual experience. And that's why if you looked at the MSG show, it was very light heavy.
Yes.
And I worked with James Klein of A Point for that, and his lighting team is incredible, where we'd go through the songs and pick out the colors, the kind of the patterns, everything. And I mean, you have like Scrokes now. He doesn't even have any visuals. It's all lighting. But he punts his sets too. He has no set list or anything. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way to go with it. Yeah. I don't love a huge visual show because people kind of just like stand and stare. I want people to dance. So, there's no right or wrong way to do it. But
sure. So tell me about the difference then of playing clubs, because you play a lot of clubs. How much production are you working with there? And I'm assuming it's a far stripped down team. Are there crossovers? Do they travel with you? What are you bringing into the club? What's the experience like, and how does that differ?
Well, I live across the street from Club Space, and it's 4 p.m. right now, and the party is still going from Saturday.
God damn!
like Fisher just got off the deck, so I'm like, all my friends are texting me right now. They're like, "You gotta go, you gotta go." I'm like, I got a podcast right now. I can't be doing this. I actually don't want to go, so this is the perfect excuse. Thank you.
Great. I'm happy I could give you that.
But there's no lights or visuals or anything, and that club is all about the music, all about dancing and socializing. Wow. And it has like this big CO2 fill and everything. And but I love it all though, because I love a huge production. This Comfort and Chaos tour I'm doing, I'm on this like basically this like UFO like diamond with this mirror above to kind of do the double diamonds like my label Experts Only. And I think there's beauty in it all. I mean, I don't know about you. Like, I don't know about you when you go out, but do you like to see like a huge grand display sometimes, and then sometimes like an intimate night where just like a band, just the guy on a guitar? You know what I mean? So I think there's beauty in it all.
Nice. Let's talk about your label, Experts Only. Tell me about like, why did you create it? What's the ethos behind it? What's the purpose or function of this label?
So the way I got in the industry is that I had zero music industry connections, and I just, put music on SoundCloud, and I found all these little indie labels of all these different collectives of people that threw parties, and like none of them were about the money. They all kind of had full-time jobs and stuff, but like, I thought it was so cool. So then I sent records to them, and that's how my foot in the industry. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me. But like my biggest inspirations were labels like Hot Creations, Dirty Bird especially. My ex-girlfriend at the time brought me to a Dirty Bird concert after I was very into just like the normal EDM at the time, like, Zed, Chainsmokers, blah, 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 and great artists. But like, I was not even going to their parties. That's just kind of the music you heard at college parties and stuff. And it wasn't until I started going into these more kind of left field house parties where I really fell in love with the scene and got super involved in the community. And that's like kind of what I want to create myself. And then when you think of Defected, they're an indie label. It's not like a major label. And they do, it was like my first ever international show was, it's probably like my third international show, so I don't want to lie here, but basically was playing Defected Croatia, and it's just like they took over this entire island themselves. And just like this small indie little dance label, and the community they knew every single song, even though the music wasn't on the radio or anything. And so now I'm signing all my favorite artists and making a whole little collective out of it. And it's just like a huge passion project of mine. And then also I can release whatever song I want and no one can tell me no. so that's also the nice part. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that you've partnered, Experts Only has partnered with Darkroom, is it? They're under the Universal umbrella. So tell me, what is that structure like? And what does that mean that this is kind of a co-release or a partnership, or are they handling distribution, but you have autonomy? Do they invest, or do you tap into any of their marketing, or what's the structure like?
So they are only with my records on Experts Only. So if I sign like another artist, it's just like, and then basically, so Justin Lubiner owns Darkroom, and he's one of the smartest guys I've ever met in my life. And he helped build like Billie Eilish's career from the age of 14 to where she is now, which is nuts. But his not just like mentorship, but like network and their distro team, their relationship with radios, like he helped me like get like a PR team and all of this, because it was literally just me and my managers, and we had no idea what the fuck we're doing. And he's just so seasoned, and it's just like they've just been a huge help. So they help with, I guess, the distro and all of that kind of stuff. But
cool.
When it comes to, marketing and shows, that it's not like a 360 deal. Like I still do all my own merch, shows, marketing, all of that. But having the extra resource has been absolutely huge. And he's a huge dance music lover at heart. Like he wanted to sign me. Like he called me. He's like, want to sign before he even heard any of my record, like any like my big records. So I was still like kind of underground at the time. This is like before Where You Are. And then once I sent him Where You Are, he's like, oh shit, like you can make a hit. So, and then since then, I mean, it's just been so fun working with someone like that. But it's cool that they're kind of like a boutique underneath Universal or something. Like I was like, hey, I want to release this track called Eat the Bass. It's an underground tech house tune. And underground tech house tune isn't like clearly not meant for radio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's like a Berghain tune or whatever, but like, I'm like, hey, this slaps in the clubs. He's like, all right, hell yeah, let's release it. Or like, I know so many other artists that sign with major labels, and they're like, unless this is like literally a hit, they won't put it out. And I think that can really ruin some artists' careers. Yeah.
So when you release other artists' music under your label, under Experts Only, you're saying that it's not a partnership necessarily with Darkroom. What's how do you tap into any third parties to help with any of the other departments that a bigger label might have?
Yeah, so we work with Defected, who helps with the distro and radio plugging and that kind of stuff. And because I've been working with them since Deep End, and I love that whole team over there. Yeah. And then also we have like Your Army, which does like the DJ like in flight and like, I don't know, like, sending it all out to all of them and stuff like that. So that's all kind of behind the scenes though, because they're not involved in like the actual like production and, songwriting or whatever. That's really all on the artists. And that's why I call it Experts Only, because I only sign like legit producers that can make good tunes. Like these last guys I just signed, they're called Altar Boy from Italy. They have 1,000 followers on Instagram. I don't give a shit. I got the record. I'm like, this is fucking hot. Like I want to sign it. And what's nice too, though, is that, like I kind of am the marketing arm as well. So even though they only have 1,000 followers or whatever, like if I'm playing it at all the sites, doing Tomorrowland, MSG, and all this stuff, like I think the records get big traction. And then like before I know it, like Solomon was playing it, Patrick Topping, and then all these other guys. So, and then I had them on my party in Detroit last weekend, which is nuts. And like flew all the way from Italy. That was pretty cool. And
Nice.
But I hire people to help with those kind of things. Like Super Evil Genius is this one graphic design kind of, I'm kind of butchering this, but like graphic design, marketing, branding company where they do the artwork for us. But it's all collaborative. Cool. I'm not going to hand draw all the artwork, but we can send the ideas and so
nice.
It's been fun.
That's great. And so when you're, I guess since you're signing artists that you love, how do they get to you? Are your DMs open? You got like a submissions portal? Or if there's an artist listening to this right now that wants to be on Experts Only, what's the process?
So we have a track stack, and then we have my email that's publicly available. And then I read most of my DMs, but there's some weeks where I'm super busy and I honestly miss some records. Like I'll see a record that comes out and I'll message the artist. I'm like, damn, I wish you sent that to me. And then I'll read the last DM and it was that record they sent me. So, shit happens. Yeah. And, but we're all on the same team here because if dance music gets bigger, the whole scene gets bigger. And, I don't really believe in competition. I believe in friendly competition. Like if one artist does really well and like has a massive show, like when I see like, let's say like a Fright Again or something does like some sick pop-up, I'll be like, damn, I wish I did something like that. But then I think of something that's kind of different to not, you know what I mean? It's like no different than, when like a big artist comes out with a game-changing album. I mean, that's why I'm a huge Radiohead Kanye fan. Is like whenever they would put out an album, everyone was like, "Oh shit, I need to get back in the studio."
Yep.
So it's tough to keep track of all the demos, and I'm not perfect at it. I want to start a sub label this winter to sign even smaller artists, but then I'm spreading myself a little too thin at this point. So we'll see.
Yeah. So tell me about the parties that you host. I mean, you mentioned the one in Detroit. And then just kind of elsewhere, how do the Experts Only parties, nights function differently from kind of a John Summit night?
So it's less about me. And then I personally curate the whole lineup and then we give them basically full production start to finish. Like the sound is basically full. I mean, like if the room's half empty, of course, it's not going to be 100%, but like, the whole goal is that everyone's dancing, and then I don't do like, I'll do like an intro when I get on, but it's not like this huge MSG like intro that, like I'm doing this huge cinematic thing. Like in Detroit, I started with this track called Acid Trip, which is a track I made like 6 years ago. And it's like super kind of like underground, bassy tech house. And and there's no big IMAG screens. So it's not like you see my face plastered everywhere.
Sure.
When you think of like I don't know how well you know dance music, but you think of like a Circo Loco, for example, half the time you don't even know who the DJ is. You just like, you can see their Circo Loco branding and stuff like that, but like, because it doesn't matter who's DJing. It's like whoever it is, they're playing good music and you're there for the party. So, and then, naturally, like, because I am pretty big now, like people do wait for me to get on and whatever, but the end goal is that we could throw Experts Only parties and I don't even play them.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of parties like that in Ibiza. I mean, Defect is a good example where they're not like led by a specific artist. They have like a roster of artists, but yeah. That's
Yeah,
kind of the
we
idea.
had Darren Delgado from Dirty Bird on, the label
Okay,
manager of
yeah,
Dirty
yeah,
Bird.
yeah.
We had him on the show, and talking about kind of how they built a brand around the label. And like you said, you're a fan of Dirty Bird, and
Mhm.
I mean, is that one of the goals and intentions, just to build this brand around experts only, like you said, where you don't even play, and so it's like its own beast, its own entity, where you've created it, but then you let it kind of off on its own.
I mean, Dirty Bird was so iconic because like they had their own sound, their own
Hmm.
swag, their own community. It felt like, as someone that used to be in the jam bands, like kind of like early college years and stuff, like it felt like if you brought like the Grateful Dead-esque culture
Yeah.
to house music, where people wear the pins and like that, and like when you saw someone else with that merch, like you could automatically be friends with them.
Yeah.
And like I don't like I sell John Summit merch and stuff, but like I don't want the whole crowd to just be wearing shirts that say John Summit Cross. I think
Sure.
it's fun to like to have like like a label community like branding, and yeah, it just it gives it that community vibe, that the whole reason why I got into this.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's very cool, and that you're kind of also giving a pathway to artists that similar to how you got your start, where you're just creating music and hoping that someone would give you a shot. Now you're able to give some other artists, like some random dude in Italy, a shot.
By the way, no, it's
Group,
it's great. And
Yeah.
then yeah, I think at Dirty Bird they did that to like so many artists, like Will Clark, Kill Frenzy, Walker and
Hmm.
Royce, like the list goes on and on. And then from there, of course, it's on the artist to do what they want to do with their career. You know, I'm not like signing 360 deals where I'm going to be doing all their marketing and social media and blah blah blah. But just to
Right.
give the platform itself, I think is awesome. So
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And in terms of marketing, I mean, because of your platform, like you said, I mean, you could, I think, what, like half your shows you're playing other people's music. I mean, that's a
mm.
huge marketing component. But what else are you kind of focusing on, or what other marketing aspects are there for these artists on Experts Only?
So we're constantly growing like the social pages.
Okay,
I have a very vast DJ network where I am pretty friendly with everybody. So I just like always saying them records and stuff like that. And that's
sick,
like how I get a bunch of records too. It's everyone's on the same team nowadays. It's great. So
nice,
like, because
that's cool.
when like if Dom Dalla sends me 2 records, I'll send him 2 back, and like
Cool,
we have nothing to lose, because if he plays out my record, it's only gonna make my record bigger, and vice
right?
versa. There's
Yeah.
not as much as a gatekeeping aspect as I think there used to be.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's a big thing of Experts Only. And then, of course, I have all these big events. Like, I just did Detroit, I got Vail, Tahoe, the Caverns.
Huge.
We're going to do stuff in Mexico and the Alps and blah, blah. Not everything's fully locked in yet, so don't totally take my word on it.
Yeah.
But, it's like, I mean, you think of like festivals like Tomorrowland has its own record label, because it's like you sign with them, you play Tomorrowland and stuff, which is...
Mhm.
But I think it's unique that we have events, and then also it has me with the artist side of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just tough though, because I'm so fucking busy with what I do
Right.
and my album and everything
Right,
too.
right.
So I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do it all as much as
Yeah.
possible.
No, you're doing great. For the young artists that are listening right now, that want to be in your shoes, what is some advice that you would give them if they're they want to be maybe a performing DJ producer? They sometimes gig out, maybe don't know if they should prioritize that, or if they should lock themselves in studio and send out demos. Like, what do you recommend is kind of the pathway for them to start building a career, or just doing this professionally?
And is their goal to tour, would you say?
Yeah, let's say they want to do what you're doing. They want to tour. They want to play clubs. They want to do festivals. They want to do this life, but also make records.
I think that you cannot get too stuck in being the local DJ lane, where I was playing Spy Bar, I think like once a month, and then Prism here and there. But I was always releasing music and really taking not just myself seriously, but all my pages, all my socials. Like it was never, even though I had a full-time job and stuff like that, it was never seen as a hobby, and it was never seen as a, like it's very hard to break out when you kind of get that, I think, connotation a little bit. So, and I feel almost bad saying that because you need to get your reps in. So
Sure.
I got my reps in when I was in college. I was playing the bar like 4 nights a week, and because it was just like a open format like college bar, like I had nothing to lose. So, but once I got and moved to the city, I very much chose everything strategically, even like what labels I released on, and even who I collabed with, and then all that kind of stuff. And then you just got to study all your favorite artists and see how they got to where they are. But it's all about the music. You got to produce, and you got to make tracks that other DJs can play. And the only way to do that at first is you got to make edits and you got to make remixes. Because like, if I made "Where You Are" as my first record and no one knows who I am, like getting other DJs to play that would be tough. And then also you gotta not give a fuck. You gotta be delusional. You gotta post on TikTok every single day because who cares? Like it's gonna be cringy. Like I think of and I'm not calling these guys cringy, but Levity from Chicago, they're fucking amazing. I put out their records, but like every day they do like a selfie video of them singing the songs and kind of like doing all stuff that other DJs thought they're above doing, I guess. And it's marketing 101.
In this day and age, yeah, you got to. No, that's great. That's super helpful. That's really valuable advice. And just to expand upon you got to do edits, you got to do remixes. Can you explain that a little bit more? I mean, what do you mean by that? You do remixes of other people's songs as yourself that you play out, or you get people to do remixes of your own music?
So, well, there's this guy named YDG who does like dubstep remixes, and he did like "Go Back," "Diamonds" by Eli Brown, like "The Way You Kiss Me" by Artemis, and there's like all these big like poppin' tracks. But and he does these very tasteful dubstep remixes that work so well in my sets. But like, if he was just making originals, I probably would have never even heard it in the first place. I mean,
sure.
I got connected with Sub Focus. I knew of him because he's a legend, but I got connected with him through, he did like a free download drum and bass remix of Deep End. And he just like, because he knew, like, his Deep End was really popping in the UK at the time because I was through Defected. And then he was playing that in his sets. And then we connected to that. And yeah, I mean, I think if you look at so many of the big EDM artists over the years, they broke the remixes and bootlegs because you're just naturally going to listen to those first. And then when they do really well, then you're like, oh, send me an original track. And then from there, I guess the rest is history.
That's sick. Your remix of one of my favorite songs of all time, Sweet Disposition, The Temper Trap. Tell me, like, how did you go about that, and why did you choose to do that remix? And how, I mean, were there even stems? Was that an era where, like, when they created that song, they even like made stems, or did you have to use an AI stem creating software? Like, how did you do that remix?
I think the acapella was online, and if it wasn't, it was the AI extractor, which work like scarily well nowadays because everyone AI rips my tracks. Like, I go to EDC and I hear my song at every single stage, and I'm like, my acapella is not online.
Right. right.
But it sounds great though. So I mean, that software does work, and then it was just like a no-brainer for me because it's just such an iconic track, and it didn't have an updated mix. I think like the last remix I knew of it was like Swedish House Mafia, but that was like 5-10 years ago, and like the production, and this is not a knock on them, but like the production was dated by now, and and I kind of wanted to really strip it back and then give it, like a big kind of melodic techno edge to it. And then I didn't know if it was going to go over super well because 15 years old, which to us might not be that old, but to college kids, I guess that means they're 8 years old then.
Right.
But it's just such an iconic tune. And then after I played it the first time, Dougie from the Temper Trap hit me up, and he's like, yo, this is the first remix I've heard of this that I've actually really liked in forever. Can I do it live with you at Coachella? And like he asked me, like, can I do it live? I'm like, yes, like please.
Sick.
And that was a huge moment. And from there, I've been incorporating a lot of live singers in my shows. So that kind of touches on your point from earlier on, like how to kind of build out the show.
Yeah.
And but the one thing for me to touch on that point again is that I thought it was very gimmicky when EDM first blew up in like 2012, 2013, that a lot of artists started like adding like drum pads and stuff like this to make it live.
Right.
Which, and it's not a knock on them at all, but I'm like, unless it's like true, I think live instruments like violins and stuff like that. Metro Boomin did it very well at Sahara last year, where like I'm not, unless like, I mean, someone like, Fred or whatever is very good at the MPC pad. DJing is my trade until I start adding more people on. So yeah.
Yep. No, that's great. And I mean, it makes a lot of sense that, you're not, it doesn't seem that you're doing anything for the gimmick, or just, I mean, you're not trying to just appeal to the lowest common denominator and do something to make dumb people like, oh, he's actually doing so they're playing like, and people respect that and they get it and they're like, oh no, like he knows what he's doing. He's a master at his craft and not trying to do something just for the look of it, which I think is what you're kind of getting at. And so yeah, but I think we've matured. At least the dance scene has matured to this point where we're kind of past that where people are saying, well, they're not playing real instruments or they're not actually doing anything or whatever. It's like those people that are tapped in understand those that are putting on a real show and actually doing it in an original, creative, authentic way versus those, like you said before, that are kind of hit and play and just kind of just putting a playlist on and going for it. But yeah.
Well, also, I think so many people DJ nowadays or know someone that does, that the craft is more well respected. And when it first blew up in like 2012, of course, people have been DJing vinyls and stuff like that at the time. But like when CDJs were new, like, it was still a foreign concept to so many people. But now, like, kids in the 70s, 80s ask for a guitar for Christmas. You give your kids like DJ decks. Like it's as common as that. So like, and no one was questioning guitar, and like people know. Like I think there's a true skill in it now. So that's what I like to show.
Right on. Well, John, this has been so great. I appreciate you taking the time and really going deep with me on all of these different concepts. I know everybody listening to this is really appreciative about, just how open, transparent you've been and how generous with your information you are. I have one final question that I ask everyone who comes on the show, and that is, what does it mean to you to make it in the new music business?
Good question. I feel like I'm living in like the Matrix right now in a simulation, and I still haven't taken it in yet. But what does it mean? I mean, it's fucking awesome. I mean, I'm doing what I love, and I really am trying my best to push the scene forward. So I feel like I'm the luckiest man alive. So I guess that's my answer. Is that good enough?
Sure. That's great, John.
Oh yeah.
Thanks so much. That was great.
All right. Appreciate you, man.
Today's episode was edited by Ari Davids with music by Grassroots District and produced by all the great people at Ari's Take.